cover a couple things that I think are absolutely critical to remember. And they've been touched on, but not emphasized enough for me. And that is this. When we start looking how this began, and we look at the timeline, you'll see that this began before President Trump was elected, proceeded after he was elected, but before he was sworn into office. And then the day he was sworn in, the media said, let the impeachment begin. 10 days later, the attorney for the whistleblower said, let the impeachment begin, let the coup begin. More power to the attorneys. That's what they were talking about. A search, as one of my colleagues said earlier, for a modus vivendi for impeachment. That's really what this was about. And so you get a phone conversation, and in that phone conversation there's an amicable discussion of numerous things. That phone conversation has been misquoted. It has been deliberately fabricated by the person who no doubt will be on one of the House managers going over to the Senate. Be my guess he is. It's the chairman, who basically, out of whole cloth, created a dramatic reading that was not representative in any way of the actual transcript. This is the same individual who promised us we would get to interview and depose the whistleblower, because that is where this engine got started, is with the whistleblower. That never happened. And so along the way, as witnesses were subpoenaed to talk and the president exercised his executive privilege, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle said, we do not have time to go to the court and determine whether that executive privilege is being exerted in an overly broad manner, whether we can narrow it, or whether it's completely inappropriate. We just don't have time, because you know why? We got to impeach this president tomorrow because it is as if he is an absolute destructive force and an immediate danger to this republic. And the reality is, they got their vote, and here we sit. Here we sit, total of 27 days since the day of the vote. That day was there. We're told it's going to go tomorrow. My colleague from Virginia has very ably explained that there's a distinction between informing the Senate procedurally and having the vote on House managers. But the point he was making, and I wish to also join in, is this. You simply have seen a process that has been devoid of the normal rules of precedent in this House. And when we see these amorphous charges, these articles passed by this body, it tells you two things that make this a supreme danger to the republic going forward. And all of them pointing to what my colleague from Florida said is the danger that the impeachment process will be misused for political purposes. And that's this. Number one, process matters. Process always matters. So we have these wonderful folks who sit in front of us to make sure that we are following the rules of the House. Make sure that we're following the rules of precedent. It's not unlike international law, quite frankly, where all you're relying on is precedent, and you just change it very simply. And if you don't have those rules, you don't have integrity to the rules, then the minority rights are abused. And when the minority rights are abused in this place, that means tens of millions of Americans, their right of representation is diffused and abused. So you have that problem. Then you have the fundamental idea of trying to impeach on things like obstruction of Congress. Well, I just told you how Congress was not obstructed. Congress had a remedy. You cannot have obstruction if you have a remedy. The remedy was to go to the other branch and resolve it. They chose not to. These are the two problems in the most virulent way.